In this series, Beyond the Face, we're exploring the art of portraiture. Portraiture asks us to see beyond the surface and explore what it means to truly see ourselves, others, and the spaces we inhabit. Through the human form, we discover new perspectives, not just in subject, but in the act of creating. By experimenting with how we capture the figure through different materials, approaches, and perspectives, we break the boundaries between form and meaning. In this episode, we meet artist David Vegt to learn about painting the human spirit with oils.
So my dad actually is a portrait photographer, and growing up, I was in his studio quite a bit, and was really taken by his approach to photograph people, but his general approach to people was um, just very warm, and I guess that kind of like spilled over into my own work because I'm just really curious about people in general, um, what it is that you can bring uh, through the paint, like what of them comes through in a sense, whether it's actual spirit or just like their personality. I love to try to capture people's actual personalities, which is why I'm a real fussy person with detail. I've been studying classical painting for about 12 years now. When I first got introduced to Instagram, it was a very different sort of app back then. I just realized that there were all these painters around the world that were still painting in that sort of classical style. And these really great painters were all of a sudden extremely accessible. And to my surprise, almost all of them would respond immediately. I met a particular guy named Jeremy Lipking. So he told me about a book called Alla Prima by a painter named Richard Schmid. And that book I consider my Bible now, as far as like how to paint specifically, because he had an approach that was brought all the way through a lineage, basically from 19th century French ateliers. And a lot of that sort of way of painting has been lost as most schools kind of went away from classical styles to more modern, paint whatever you want. It's more about the concept. It's more about, um, you know, your approach and your interpretation versus actually learning hard skills, which I think is such a loss because, music and other art forms, you still have the basics. And so you need to have those basics in order to approach things with a better style. Sometimes I will take a lot of time in the drawing aspect of a painting. So if I really want to go for detail versus expression, I'll do a very detailed drawing first. So, and when I say drawing, I'm actually still using a paintbrush. But what I'm doing is I'm worrying more about line and form. And so I'll take a long time to actually draw out the figure, and then I'll worry about the color and value. And the reason I chose oil paint is actually because I think it's actually the simplest form of paint. Most people are really intimidated by oil paint, but the problem is, I think there's been a lot of teaching that it's either really messy and hard to clean up, that it's toxic, all these things, when actually oil paint now, first of all, it's no longer as toxic because you can use like a walnut alkyd instead of using solvents, which is when I'm teaching, that's what I'll use. And even the solvent now, Gamsol, which is Gamblin's version of odorless mineral spirits, you keep the cap on, and it's still very non-toxic compared to many others. And yeah, and then the thing about oil paint too is that you can erase things. You can move things around, you can wash it out, you can sand it down, you can layer it, you can make mistakes and cover them over. With watercolor and other mediums, it's way less forgiving. So that's why I chose oil painting. One of my most well-known paintings, it's called Sunday Soup. And it's actually a painting of my two daughters. And the one daughter is in the foreground and she's just eating, her morning Sunday soup or afternoon Sunday soup, I should say. And there's just an expression there that is like an everyday moment. And I think it just connects with people on a very intimate level.